Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. If you were around with us back in 2021 in the Print to Oblivion era, and then 2022, the cruel summer, and then on into 23, you remember all the times we heard about the huge inflated print runs, and it was true. WotC was printing into the hype of the post-COVID era, and it really peaked in early 21. So about the time of Kaldheim, Strixhaven, Time Spiral Remastered, and then into the summer you got into Modern Horizons 2. After that was AFR, and then Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow rounded out the year. And so Modern Horizons 2 was a little bit different because people really desired that set. You know, the enemy fetch lands being reprinted in there, and Ragavan and Esper Sentinel, and all of the great cards that became such powerhouses in the modern format really pushed people to actually buy that set a lot. They did a lot of reprints of it. Sadly, they pushed one last reprint right as it was going past its supported lifetime, and it really didn't need that. But everything else there was legitimately printed to oblivion in that time frame. And something that I like to talk about from time to time and impress a lesson upon people who maybe weren't here in 21 and 22 and 23 is that printed to oblivion does not last forever. So we're going to look at a couple of these products that were absolutely, without a doubt, printed to oblivion at some point. But you have to remember, these are scarce collectibles that people destroy for fun. And over time, after they go out of their supported print life, the population of them left in the world only goes down. Now, none of this is to say that any of these would have been good things to buy and hold on to in 2021. And in fact, Zendikar Rising, this was a late 2020 product, and maybe one of the worst, being the oldest product of the ones I'm going to show you today, and really, I think, the lowest price still. This was absolutely the most printed to oblivion, but now we've finally seen a little bit of movement, and it's up here at $120, which, again, if you had bought this in 2020 or 21 or 22 or probably 23, you probably still feel pretty bad about having tied up your money in it. But even at this point, 32 boxes, selling one box a day, and 140 in the market. So still tons of market depth, nearly 5 months of depth in the market today. And remember, more boxes will always come out of the closets. And so it's going to be a long time for this to get anywhere close to $200. I mean, maybe we could set a timer and we could come look at it at the end of next year, at the end of 2026, and we could see if this is even then closing in on $200. But the point is that no matter how much is printed, it will eventually tighten up. And so you have to appreciate that we don't know what the print runs of these products are. WotC doesn't tell us what their print runs are. On some things, if they have serialized cards in them, we can make some more estimated guesses. We can model based on pull rates of the serialized cards, and we can maybe get a vague idea. And usually it's only qualitative. It's maybe that this set with serialized cards printed more or less collector boxes than this other set with serialized cards. But to a great degree, we have no insight into print run numbers. But it's important to remember that even if it's a wildly overprinted set, it's going to eventually tighten up its supply. Now, if it's a less overprinted set like we're going to get here in a minute, the supply will tighten up faster. And so the bearishness is not warranted for as long. Let's go through a couple more of these 2021 era products. Of course, Kaldheim was the January 21 release, and set box up to 161. This is gained gradually over the last 6 months, maybe even a year. Let's look at the year plot. No, it was sideways for the first 6 months of the last year and then took a big leg up. So we see that even something like this, a set that really didn't make any waves in its own time, it was pretty much forgotten as soon as it came out. There was nothing for WotC to brag on this set except that somehow, by some insane metric, it was the best-selling winter set ever. Whatever, what a grasping at straws to try to pump up how this set sold. And obviously, very legitimately printed to oblivion in its own time. Strixhaven, this was the next standard release after Kaldheim in 2021. It came out, I believe, right before Time Spiral Remastered. I think this one came a month before Time Spiral Remastered. 135, again, not doing great, but I would expect a little more for this in the long term, just because of the Mystical Archive cards, I think that has a good chance of driving some long-term value when you have things like the Japanese foil demonic tutor Mystical Archive. Cards like that are very, very unique and are essentially a lottery ticket. So I would hope that if we were to look at this, say, 5 years from now, this one would stand out amongst the rest from this era. But again, it's just taken a long time for the market to burn through the inventory and get to the point where the price can start rising in any meaningful way. And now the next standard release after that, this was right after Modern Horizons 2 came out. My recollection is, say, Modern Horizons 2 was something like the August release, and then Adventures in the Forgotten Realms was the September or October release and was the standard expansion. This one is done better than expected. And it's really surprising because it's surrounded by sets that are still doing much worse. You might remember that the two standard releases that came out after this were Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. They're still pretty much in the dumps. And this set itself was very weak. And even looking forward now, 4 years after this set originally came out, it's basically still old gnawbone or bust when you open a box of this. So there's not a lot of value in this, but maybe it's the flavoring, maybe it's the theming that works really, really well with Magic's target audience. And power-wise, there's just nothing there, but the price is the price. It's $179, and the market has been responding to the dwindling supply of it. And you see the difference here, 43 boxes in the market today, and it sold 24 in the last month. So not even 2 months of market depth today. And yeah, more boxes will come out, but by the end of the year, we should expect that this will probably be cresting over $200 before the end of 2025. Now, one more that I want to talk about, and you guys who have been with me for a long time will chuckle a little bit at me being ridiculous when I show you this, but yes, Dominaria Remaster Collector Box is still one of my highest conviction items in the entire market right now, $270 once you add in that shipping cost. And this is a box where my thesis has always been, it does not matter how overprinted it was. And yes, it was incredibly overprinted, and the draft boxes that went along with it were also incredibly overprinted at the beginning of 2023. But this expansion is just way too good. It's way too well engineered, and especially the collector boxes, the variants you can get, the retro frame cards, everything in it is just way too well engineered for this to be a long-term dud. Now, it's made a pretty decent comeback over the last year. It was Black Friday of 2023 was the bottom of the previous market cycle, and afterwards, there was no way we could claim that the market was still doing poorly. Basically, the Magic market has been almost on an uninterrupted train of marching upwards since Black Friday of 2023, and on that day, we were buying these at something like 140 or 150 or so with all the discounts from TCG Player for the Black Friday sale. So it really bottomed out there, way below where it should have been, and this was a half premium product. So it was in between that kind of standard expansion pricing and a master set pricing. And so for it to fall all the way down into the 130s, 140s, 150s was very, very, very bad. It absolutely confirmed that this was printed to oblivion. But now we've had another year and a half. The supply has tightened up, and eventually people are going to realize, oh yeah, this has the entire tutor cycle. It has Sylvan Library, it has Yawgmoth, it has Urza, it's Urza's Incubator, it has Force of Will, it has Birds of Paradise, it has all kinds of great retro frame cards. It has cards that had never been reprinted, like Overmaster and High Tide. So just wonderful, wonderful engineering in this expansion, and it's why I have a pretty outsized amount of this compared to other things. And the point, though, is printed to oblivion does not last forever. That $130 price at Black Friday 2023, that was a blip on the radar. And so it is doubled in price since then, doubled in price in about the last 18 months. And so even if you're bearish on an item because it does appear to be printed to oblivion right now, even if it is really printed to oblivion right now, There is a time to buy into it. There is a time, if it's one of the normal kind of things you would put back in your closet for the long term, there is a time to go ahead and get into it. And now, some of these things that I showed you as examples, they are dramatic examples because they're from the 2021 era when WotC was just printing with unrelenting fervor and just running the presses flat out. And even they are starting to tighten up. Yes, it's taken 4 years, but even they are starting to tighten up, proving that even the most overprinted items will eventually get there. And of course, Dominaria Remastered being in early 2023, the very next expansion, the very next release of a collector box after Dominaria Remastered was Phyrexia. And we all know, in retrospect, Phyrexia was the first collector boxes where they really slashed print runs dramatically and solved the formula for how to engineer collector boxes to have incredible value. Those Phyrexia collector boxes today are somewhere around $450 each, and they were a standard release. So wholesale was about $195. So we know WotC fixed things at the very next release. We know that Dominaria Remastered still had way too high of a print run. And even then, the collector boxes of DMR are bouncing back and gaining. Over the long term, I think they'll do really well. I think they will outpace a whole lot of other ones. But you just have to burn down the supply. Remember, these are scarce collectibles that people destroy for fun. They get the boxes and they rip them open to get the dopamine hit of busting packs and pulling nice, rare cards. So never underestimate what the market can do with a product, even if at some point in its life, it is printed to oblivion. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.